And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Bob. I am your sensei here to tell you a story as a griot. And a griot is a person who tells a story in such a way that the listener is brought to an understanding that normally they're too distracted or tired or taken away by their hormones, one way or the other, angry or horny or. But if you are conscious intent, I am conscious intent, I am conscious intent, I am. Oh, conscious aware, I am conscious aware, I am conscious aware, I am. Oh, then you can navigate yourself through all that's going on. And I am in my 70s, so I remember the 50s. When I was 6 years old, my father took me out to the nuclear test site in Nevada. When he was, he left the Air Force. He was a bird colonel, and my father was a triple Virgo, so he was amazing at organizing. And I have a nice little bit of that strategic understanding, appreciation, and abilities to manifest and to work through things. And my father was very good at picking the right people. He always wanted to look his best, so he picked people who would, take care of business. That he didn't have to worry, didn't have to go check up on. He would set up the strategy, and these people would go up and do it. Now there are not too many of those folks left, right? Even within the dynamic of the folks who are servicing the high table. And the high table is a middle managerial crew, like high table character actors like Rothschild, Mr. Schwab, a few others. Bill Gates used to be a poster child, but he's getting his way to the high table. Hasn't got there yet. He's still at the kiddie table. But guys like Musk and faceless Facebook boy and Jeffy boy and moron Elon moron. I knew he was a moron when someone was interviewing him and saying, "So why'd you name your car company Tesla?" Now this guy who was the reporter was a smart guy because he had 4 questions he asked Elon, and he knew the answers. He just wanted to see where Elon was on that. So he goes, first off, so why'd you name your car company after Tesla? And Elon said, well, my backers and lawyers told me to. Right? And he didn't know that his cars each wheel has a induction motor on it. And an induction motor is, once it gets going, it doesn't really take any electricity to run. So you hit the switch, you put your foot on the gas pedal, and zing, that car will get from 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds because there are no gears. It's just zoop, right up to that point that your foot is on the accelerator. And so that's why, like on the highway, Tesla can go and go and go, right? And so you have a battery, right, which is DC. And then you have a device that switches it from DC to AC, right? And then the motors run, right? Now, Tesla had envisioned this, right? And what he wanted to do was basically put at first he wanted to put just a copper strip in the road, and then like I don't know if you ever seen an induction stove, right? Glass countertop buttons. You hit high, you put your hand on the glass, it doesn't even feel, it's cold. You put the induction frying pan on there, put some water in there and throw egg, and you got a poached egg in like, a minute, right? So it transfers the current into that pan, and then that pan gets hot, right? So there are no burners, right? So very efficient, heats immediately, right? And in a lot of ways, it has as much control as gas, right? Once you kind of get used to it, but same with the gas, hit the gas full blast, man. It'll cook it real quick, right? Down low, it'll take a little longer, right? So induction is actually excellent once you get used to it. Whereas the electric is not so much because it can be very finicky. It's not always the same, right? So the induction car, wow, right? So Tesla had no idea. So he goes, "Who's your favorite inventor of the 19th century?" So Edison. I said, "Not Nikola Tesla." And he goes, "Who?" And then the guy doesn't even bat an eye, doesn't, say, "Moron, your company's named after Tesla." And I just said, "You didn't like Tesla?" And you said, "Who?" And then the guy goes, "So why did you like Edison?" And Moron goes, "Well, because he made more money than anybody else in that field, And he was really good at, he is, he had everything, not just the electric light bulb, but he had, you go look at GE, and he knew that Edison was GE, right? And, oh no, again, the reporter said, "Oh, like GE." Go, "What do you mean GE?" And the guy explained, well, there was a depression in the 90s when everyone was investing into electricity. And that's when they switched from Edison to Tesla, from DC to alternating current. And, Edison lost the wars of the currents because once Westinghouse and Edison transmitted alternating current from the dams at Niagara Falls that they had, and they transmitted all the way to Chicago, first to Buffalo, and then all the way to Chicago to light up, because Edison's DC wasn't working. So they just brought it straight there, right? And bango, it was like amazing. Everything was lit up, and there was a ton of neon and a ton of induction. And that scene out of Captain America, right, where Captain America, before he becomes Captain America, when he was a weakling little guy, he's trying to sign up, and they keep telling him, "Get lost," and he meets Bucky, his buddy, who's about to go off. He's wearing the uniform, and the girls are all thinking he's cute, and got 3 girls on each arm, and he's got some girl ready for Captain America weakling. And there's a scene where Iron Man's dad, who was the inventor of that time, he's got a car that's going to fly through the air like George Jetson car in 19 and he hits a switch and the car gets here and goes, "Ah, ah, ah, ah." But there's a scene where they it's a big whatchamacallit shot, crane shot of the whole this wild crazy World's Fair, and it was a representation of the Chicago World's Fair, because a crane shot was a computer generated thing of the Chicago. So it captured that like amazingness of Tesla's technology, right? And Tesla had remote controlled, drones in the Chicago rules where he had boats in there that were autonomous. And he was telling people, yeah, if the American government would just give me X amount of money, I would put X amount of these out in the Atlantic Pacific, and no boat could come near us. And it's autonomous. It would go after our enemies, right? So, and that was like, the 1890s. And all this stuff is there. And Moron Boy, he had no idea about it, right? So he's obviously, and he had no money. He made no money. He was like Jeffy, the porn star, not Jeffy Smile Boy, but Jeffy, guy who seemingly committed suicide. When I was an apprentice electrician, I didn't just work on the World Trade Center. I worked on that jail, and that jail was high end. It wasn't like the Tombs. Only people like Jeffy, porn star, would be there. Real high end folks. And you were in a room by yourself, and the sheets were made out of paper. You couldn't hang yourself from the sheets. There wasn't anything. The ceilings were low, so there was no way you could tie something up there. And everyone had. There were no bunk beds. Everyone had a single bed, so really couldn't hang yourself. And there were 2 TV cameras in every cell, so they kept an eye on you 24/7. And they had people, each, I think there's somewhere like 6 cells, and there's this hallway, right? And then it was this big long hallway, and there were little hallways with 6 cells off of each one. There were 2 guys sitting at a desk in each of those hallways. Every 10 minutes, they got up, they walked up and down the hallway, and they looked in physically to make sure that individual was okay, right? And they didn't do it, they didn't do things to really, keep the lights on all the time or play music or, there was no MK Ultra going on. These were high-end rich people who, for political or social or oops kind of reasons, they were, in the Huskow, getting going to court, right? And if you were in there, you're pretty much gonna be found guilty, and because otherwise your lawyers would have gotten you off, paid somebody off. Justice. The word "justice" really means just us, and that meant the white founding fathers, white male, misogynist, patriarchal oligarchs. That's what we are. That's what we've always been. Really since Christopher Columbus, and he was a psychopath. Chris killed 6 million indigenous people in Haiti, and so it was called Christian something. And there's Haiti, and then there's the rich people side where the gated communities. It's what's it called? It starts with a D. It'll pop into my mind. But when I was in prep school, my graduating class was only 32 guys, and the guy's family who owned Seagram's was one of my the guy's family owned U.S. Steel. The guy who Hobart, restaurant equipment. Who else? The big paper folk, all of the above. Oh, hey there, my friend. Esoteric, yes. Esoteric. Are you the dragon who put my first 50 shows on thumb drives and sent me a drawing you did when you were 11 that described the bridge and the Akashic record? And yes, I'm so happy. It makes my heart just, I'm so sorry for whatever stupid thing I did, not knowing what button I pushed. I'm so glad you're here. I really am. It really, really. This guy made a drawing. How old were you? 11 or something? And like, or 11 years later, however old he was, 11 years later, um, he sent me this drawing of what exactly I was talking about the night before. And I was describing, how we're, just avatars, and that golden thread that goes up to our Akashic record, that's our soul, is just a server. It's just a fiber optic line going to the server of the Akashic record. And there the 9 doors were, and yours is always open to go to your superconscious mind, the sanctuary of your own choosing. And there's this bridge that goes over it. And this guy drew the picture like 11 years before I told the story. That was quite amazing. Yeah, it's the process of healing. Yep. And moving forward. And that's what I say. Don't believe a word I say. Just keep moving forward, right? Don't keep going over and over the past. The past is over there. The future is not here yet, right? We're only in that moment. And at this moment, we have the foothold to move forward, right? And so we can do that. There's Jamie. Synchronistic intuitive beauty. Yep. Hey, Jamie. Hey, Dragon. So, and we are truly in an amazing point in time. All the crazy stuff that's going on, well, in reality, no. It's been this way pretty much every moment, because we always have that moment to step out of this crazy stuff, right? There is guys, have you seen the YouTube channel Dark Journalist, right? This guy right here, Daniel. He really, really is quite good. He really goes after everything. He has a lot of people who come on.
Whatever it happens to be. But ultimately, when you see a dramatic shift like that, all those Democrats are left out in the cold because this thing is just moved out, and the neocons have taken over, and they want war, baby, and they're going to give it to you, and they'll give it to you overseas. They almost gave us World War III this week with the Ukraine scare, and Zelensky saying, "Oh, it's a Russian missile, defend me with a nuke." And then it turned out, hey, no, it was a Ukraine missile that launched into Poland. Those are the types of things, exactly the types of things that you run the risk of when you engage in a war. In that whole situation, immediately in the wake of that, the Biden administration asked for another $37 billion for Mr. Zelensky, comedian Zelensky. So, that's our money, and if we don't want it going there, we have to make a really loud noise about it not going there. And there are those channels available to us, and I'm doing it right here, and I suggest we all do it, because that situation is not only a black hole of money, but it is.
And this guy, I am your griot. I tell you stories. He actually does his homework. So, he talks about things that I was like standing around, oh, look at that. And so I can, when he talks about, Bermuda Triangle, the hot zone, when he talks about the connection, why did Kennedy get whacked? Well, because of UFOs. And who really UFOs are those? They aren't extraterrestrials. We are when Heinz boy at the Davos said, wasn't it amazing? It's almost like we're extraterrestrials. These guys are trying to push everyone into, Steven Spielberg, who is the claptrap telling the public, hey, this is what's going to happen. gave us Close Encounters, just to get us hot to trot for that, and then DNA Dinosaurs, and then it's interesting. You know, our good friend Stanley Kubrick was going to do AI, and what he was going to do with it was like, whoa, straight out of Turing's book. Turing wrote a really great book in the 20s because he experienced World War One, and he said, no, 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 no. And he was trying to describe, Mr. Globaloney, what I call the hidden hand, what other people call, the New World Order. But this stuff has been, not anything new. It's been going on since the Tower of Babel. Tower of Babel was a thrust into materialism to bring forth, what these guys are doing with transhumanism, And that's why I keep talking about the movie Zardos. You go see that movie. It's on YouTube, bring it up. And it was made in the early 70s. And Sean Connery, Mr. 007, from the 007 thing, he was the best 007 because he really played a sociopath. I mean, killing when he didn't even blink twice. Zardos, yeah. When I saw that, I went into the movie theater, and a friend of mine, and he goes, here, put out your tongue. And he dropped a little Sandoz on my tongue, and I watched Zardos. I was there. And that's the thing about, films, movies. They are a mechanism to suspend your disbelief and to transport you into another land. I mean, that's The Wizard of Oz, which is Zardos spelled backwards, or Zardos is The Wizard of Oz spelled backwards. And, the movie starts out in sepia, and that nasty school teacher on the bicycle is going to take Toto away, and then takes everybody off to Oz, and she, her house comes crashing down, and it's still sepia but brighter and more like black and white rather than sepia. And then she goes out the kitchen door into the land of Oz, and it's super duper unbelievable Technicolor, and they kind of invented Technicolor for this movie. So it was like, wow. I saw that one on a little Sandoz too, and so that big screen and the color, and even when it's in black and white, it makes that you can see a whole. You suspend your disbelief. And Hollywood, why did they call it Hollywood? And that sign was put up on that hill, and no one knows who owns the property. And that sign was put up there overnight. Gigantic. I don't know if you've ever been in California. It's a gigantic. It's almost half a football field. And Hollywood, right? It's spelled Holly, like the holly tree, like Holly Bush. And all magic wands are made from Hollywood. Say no more. Not too cold. Yeah. Yeah, Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and then that up until Tuesday, from Thursday to Tuesday, it dropped 60 degrees. It was like around 40-ish, and then it went to 40 degrees below freezing water. And then Christmas Eve evening, it was, by my thermometer, 60 below freezing. On Fahrenheit, it's 32. It was 60. So that's like almost 90 degrees colder than freezing cold water. And there was a 40-mile-an-hour wind with gusts of 80 degrees. So it's like, wind chill of 210. And then, Tuesday, whoop, it went back up. And it's been pretty, in the deep green, it's been, somewhere between 32 and 28 at night, and somewhere between 54 and 62 um, during the day. And it's rained a lot. And if it was really cold, it would have been snowing a lot. So that kind of abnormality of the weather, right? And so, has any of you guys seen the movie The Day After Tomorrow? And it came from a book, and the book was written by Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Art Bell was an amazing guy. When I was a kid, there were people like William B. Williams and a few others who talked about flying saucers and telepathy and all of that, and had the folks that people now talk about, right? And but with they didn't have the internet, and they didn't have the ability to reach out to people. So when I was a little kid with my transistor radio in my ear, I would listen to that stuff. So today, we have podcasts, and so Art Bell, in the 70s started this off. This little, he had his own transmitter up there in Nevada or Arizona, or he was kind of near Las Vegas, and then satellite showed up. He got himself a satellite dish. He beamed it off, and then he started getting carried by other radio stations. So then they stuck George Norrie there, and because they gave Art a lot of guff, and so he went off to live in the Philippines, and that worked for a year or two, and then he came back, and then he left. He kind of sold his show to a network, and they gave him a hard time, and so he went on to satellite, right? And he did that for a number of years, and then he died. And whether I think he just kind of gave up, or he was whacked, one or the other. But he was an amazing person. He changed the world in a lot of ways. And I truly liked him. He was a great interviewer. He was a great presence on the radio. His voice was really great. And he had a great sense of humor. But his interviewing style was he, started out, talked a little bit, and then brought on the guest, asked a question, and then shut up. Didn't say anything, right? And he gave the guest at least that first half hour to say whatever the heck you want, right? Then he said, okay, we're ready for a break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask this question, this question, this question. Commercials, come back. And he said, okay, first question, and he would give the question a little bit of his feeling on it, and then the person would have, however much time. If it took the rest of that session, that half hour, fine. They had 5 hours. His shows lasted for 5 hours, right? And so he did that, for a good 30 to 40 years, in different motifs. And he gave access to, and then he was one of the first guys to really get into the computer. So he had a website, and I still go to that website. The people who run the website is not George Norrie. George Norrie is, again, very similar to the morons who were working at the Washington Post and went after Richard Nixon. And one of those, I forget their names, but one came straight from naval intelligence. I mean, he didn't go to college to get a degree in, nothing. He just went straight from, and still was in naval intelligence, to the desk at Washington Post, and then went after Richard Nixon, right? And so, Daniel here at Dark Journalist, he really goes into all of those things, right, and takes it apart. He was going on about the 3 women who died about JFK. Marilyn Monroe, right? And the lady was on What's My Line? She was a newspaper reporter. She, was truly an amazingly good writer. She was syndicated all over the place, and she had more guts than all the men writers put together. And when everyone was like lapping up, the Warren Commission. She went to the hearings on the guy who shot, Ruby who shot Oswald, right? And she really, she figured, and she interviewed him in his cell, and like a few days after she interviewed him, the guy died of cancer. That's always a good one. When you die from cancer, you've never been, said to have cancer or acted like you had cancer, and then you die of it. The other one is brain aneurysms, right? And, FDR died of a brain aneurysm, but in reality, he either, I don't think he did it himself, but someone stuck a 45 in his mouth, pulled the trigger, and blew his brain pan right off, and from his eyeballs. And so that's why they didn't have an open casket. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, that pretty much happened to Jack. That picture of, he's sitting there waving, and all of a sudden the back of his head gets blown off to the trunk of the Lincoln, right? Let's see. I bring us together. Yep. Together is where it's at, because all this stuff it's just a soap opera. And it only lasts for a nanosecond. Like I said, past ain't here, future, we're not here yet. And so that's what my, the last 5 years I wrote 15 novels, and 5, I broke them into series of 5, but they're really kind of well connected. And they're like this show. They're kind of, I like to write. So, what I really like to do is to wordsmith, and it's interesting. If you have, esoteric, I love it. Do you have Google? My email is thedudeawake42@gmail, right? Now I can send you a Google, because everything I write is in freaking Google Docs, and I can send it to you if you have Google. But if you have, anything else, any other email, I have to do all kinds of, I put, take it and put it over here and put it over there and then put it over here and then send it to you. It's like, oh my God. And look what I did when I just had no idea what I was doing, So, I try not to push any buttons really. So if you have, because the document's real easy if you have Google Docs. It just says share. I hit share. If I have your email, I just type it in a little box and then I send it to you, right? And I either send it to you where you can just read it. I send it to you where you can read it and make notes and send it back to me, which is I really love. And then the other one is send it, and you can do whatever the heck you want. You could, put it on your dashboard and then just put your name on it and publish it as you wrote it. But I don't think anybody who would read this say, it's only one guy who writes like this. So anyway, so I'm, and really I wrote this to get it out. I'm not really worrying about fame and fortune. I've already been infamous, and I already can, I live like a millionaire on $400 a month. And that's a good point. Here we are at 33 minutes and 33 seconds. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. Anybody want to throw anything in my PayPal? Please do so. The gift is always appreciated. And you send it to the dudeawake42@gmail, dudeawake42@gmail. And since Thanksgiving, about 4 people have sent me something, and I appreciated everything that I really, truly, but I just love all you guys. I don't really, this show ain't really here for making money. It's not like, and, Mr. AI keeps, I have to, they let me publish this thing on YouTube, it gets out there to you. Something on the order of 17,000 people watch this, but I can't get above 500 subscribers. I don't know if you guys were around when I had a Jerry Lewis telethon. back in the days when I used to do those like ridiculously long shows of 5, 6 hours. Um, and I was, come on, let's go, we're almost there. And we had gotten past 500 and we were heading towards 700. And just before we got to 700, the whole thing went, and I went back to 340 subscribers. And I stayed there for about 2 years. And now it's a little bit above 500. And again, I couldn't care less because I know, because when my guru, internet guy, one day was sitting at my, front of my laptop and said, can you do this, do it? Can you make this bigger? Can you do that? So he was, doing things and sending things to other people. I couldn't quite get it to them. I still don't know how to start an email. You send me an email and there's the reply thing. I can do that. I just hit that and then I type in what I want to send back to you. So I can do that. And it's a lot easier if I do it on this than this, right? Let's see what you guys are saying here. I learned but don't eat responsible. Yeah, I surely eat a lot more responsible than I did when I worked for the Desperate Lawyers, So, things like, I don't eat red meat. I don't eat meat, really. I mean, I eat everything, but not a lot, right? Because I really don't have a lot of money. In spring, summer, and fall, I eat great because I have a garden and I eat out of the woods. And so, the woods, since the, the folks from California and Florida and Charlotte and New York and New Jersey have come, and they're driving all through the woods with their motorcycles and four-wheelers. They're pretty much, it's really amusing that this one place is full of ginseng, and I mean, most people don't realize how sensitive plants are, especially healing herbs. So I have a whole hill in front of my deck that the grandmas came, 20 years ago and planted for me, right? So I didn't have to go into the woods. It was just right along this hill. And it's quite nice because it all grows up, and then twice, in the middle of summer, and then in winter, I just weed whack it and then clean it and use it, right? And anyway, but the morels and golden seal and ginseng are out in the woods. I do have it on my hill, but just enough for me. But a lot is out there, and those morons with their motorcycles and four-wheelers hasn't killed, because it's really hard to kill the biome. It can be spoiled. One section over here can go, ooh, I'm not coming up right now, but the whole biome, and it's, I live in a Cherokee National Forest that goes like from Georgia, to Virginia. So, and West Virginia, it's gigantic. And so right around where I am in this 200 square mile accordion Sawtooth Mountain range between the Blue Ridge Mountains and the other guys over here, the Appalachian. When the mountains were formed, they cut up, and that's why it's Sawtooth Mountain, because all those things went. And we're gonna have pretty soon some pretty interesting. I mean, the shit that we're experiencing, that book and movie, The Day After Tomorrow, is really good, because when we have changes, they happen like that. If ever now the magnetic poles are switching all the time, and they're going through some pretty serious meaning they're having to change the GPS thing like every 36 hours. It used to change it every year, then every half year, then every quarter year, then every. Now they're doing it like every 36 hours. It's like pretty wide, and by pretty large distance. It's not just a few feet here and a few feet, but hundreds of miles here, there, and everywhere. And in essence, it's we don't notice it, but when our magnetic pole changes, so that means the little magnetic field changes, and so there are certain places when this happens that there is no electromagnetic field. So the solar flare that they, a real nasty, worse than nuclear weapons radiation from the sun can get at us. Because the thing that's, if we didn't have our magnetic field around us, right, the Van Allen belt, we would, and the Van Allen belt is kind of a misnomer because it's a belt where that little magnetic thing is. And at a certain point, that belt, there's some serious radiation. So, like leaving Earth to go to the moon can be very dangerous. But, as it was, we went to the moon, but we did not go to the moon as advertised. Yes, the Saturn V, shot us off the planet, but that the LEM and the landing excursion module and the service module that the guys rode in and then kind of, landed. That sucker was like, almost 15 stories tall, and it had electromagnetic field around it, meaning it had gravel magnetic propulsion. It was like a flying saucer. And pretty much most, if you watch Dark Journalist, he goes in great detail. He has a guy, Joseph P. Farrell. That guy is like off the hook. And a woman who's an economist, Catherine Austin Fitts. And then he has another guy, I forget his name, but he is the guy about COG, continuation of government. That's what Homeland Security is. That's what FEMA is. That's what Hail Hydra is. That's what 1984 is, right? So, and COG, why the day before 9/11, there were a number of articles that came out that said that the Bush-Cheney administration, they'd only been in operation for about 8 months or so, or 6 months, and they had misplaced $2.3 trillion in the defense budget. And what was really strange is that, for the last 10 years, the defense budget wasn't over 600 billion. So where did that 2.7 trillion come from? And so Rumsfeld had to go on and said, "We got it. We have all the receipts. It's like guy trying to make up for his he works for a guy and he gets a little credit card. And, I just spent $40,000. Oh, I got all the receipts. And he said, we have all the receipts and we have our best people and we got all the floppy disks and we have all the paper. We got boxes and boxes, and it's in this section of the Pentagon that has just been, remodeled. And so no one's there except these guys, and they got all the tables and all the computers, and we'll know about this in 6 months. But I can't tell you something I don't know anything about, right? But we'll get to the bottom of this, right? And the next day, those alleged aircraft fly into those alleged buildings, and that section of the Pentagon that got hit, and when the picture was taken just minutes after the alleged 767 flew into that Pentagon, the hole in the wall of the Pentagon was 6 feet in diameter, right? And no big thing of wings and there was nothing, of the tail, and there were the engines, no place anywhere. And And the sucker went all the way in and took out all of the rings. And all 300 people who knew anything about what happened to that 2.7 trillion, and all of those floppy disks and all those boxes of receipts, and you never, never, never heard another word about it, right? So as a youngster, my daddy took me to a nuclear test site, and I saw a ground burst nuclear weapon. I was 6, right? They blew it off at about 4 in the morning. It's, darker than dark. We're out there in the parking lot, the blockhouse. We're about 20 miles from ground zero. And my dad has this kind of, lead blanket over me, right? And he's got welder goggles on me, and he's got me lathered in this cream. And the speaker goes, 20 seconds to detonation. Everyone turn around. Do not face, ground zero. So we're looking at the blockhouse. And, my dad's kind of got his arm on my shoulder and another of his buddies on the other side of me. And, then you hear 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then there's no, they don't say 0, just 1. And it's the longest second I ever saw. And then all of a sudden, no sound, no nothing, just a flash of light. It was the brightest thing I ever saw. And I'm looking through welding goggles with a lead blanket over me, and I see the concrete wall of the blockhouse in front of us. And there were about 20, 30 guys out in the parking lot. And I see all a shadow of everyone's skeleton on that wall, right? And then all of a sudden, this, like thunder, like you never heard, this sound that was like, and my father's arm grabbed this thing, and the other guy grabbed my other, and I kind of almost lifted up, like I was going to fly across the parking lot, and that went by, boom, and because that lead blanket was pretty heavy, and my father and the guy turned me around, and I had this thing over, I got welding glasses on, and my father says, put your hand up in front of your head, eyes, and I could see my skeleton in front of me. And then that guy and my father kind of pulled the lead blanket off of me, and I was looking through the welding glasses, and the inside of the mushroom cloud was really like you could see Satan in there, right? And then my father said, okay, I'm going to take these goggles, close your eyes. And it was like really kind of weird ass bright. And he said, just crack your eyes. And around that unbelievably strangeness, and that had died down in brightness, but it was just doing shit inside there that was not normal, right? It was dimensional. You could see all kinds of things flying around inside it. It was like, and from that point on, I had a different worldview. Pole shift is gradual, I think. Well, I was talking about the electromagnetic poles, not the poles themselves, right? The physical poles, right? Which are North and South poles. But back in the day, when I was the itinerant scholar, I went and looked at things for every kind of discipline because that was really my shtick. I was hired because I didn't have a scholastic prejudice, right? So they would show me something, and I would, look at it, and I would use my little squeegee sense to, look at it in another way. And I went to a conference in '71 at Brookings, and they, were talking about what they really started out talking about that was quite interesting was that there was a similar conference in 1891 in Paris, right? And all the oil people were there, all the techno people, all the bankers, and they basically said, okay, here's, Tesla has discovered 0 point energy, right? And here's this, and here's this, and here's what, Newton said about, because they brought out all of the, Newton and all those guys, uh, Da Vinci, and there were a whole bunch of guys like that who really saw what was going on. Same with Mr. Survival of the Fittest. They knew all that shit was full of crap. I mean, Newton understood that what he described was the big picture, the stuff we can see, the stuff down below atom size that he understood existed. He understood that was where the spirit was, right? And this was the illusion, right? He actually understood what the guys who made the movie Matrix, he understood that, right? And there were a lot of people going all the way back to the Greeks, Mr. Pythagoras, Mr. Geometry, he understood all this, and so did Plato. And because Plato, why we remember Plato is that he was a great, sensei, and he taught, like Alexander the Great and other pretty interesting folk. But when he was a young guy, he traveled through the mystery schools, right? And he got to 411, and he realized that humanity was a lot older than what we thought we were. And that goes for today. And he basically got the George Lucas picture. I mean, he saw that's what we were because there was a war in our solar system, and the asteroid belt is the remnants of the planet was the where the capital was, where the groovy place, where everything, the rich people were, all, etc. And what blew it out of our solar system was our moon. Our moon is the Death Star. When the boys landed on it and they put devices that measured geologic motion and change, call those devices, and put up an antenna so those suckers are still working. Because there's nothing there really, no atmosphere or rain or wind or any of the above, and so they're still working. And a lot of the instruments they left there were not run by solar cells, but by little, decaying pieces, chunks of plutonium. And so those instruments are still working. And whenever they set off a big booster, it usually hits the moon because the moon is the only thing around us, and it has a gravitational field of its own. And so it smashed. There are a lot of boosters that have smashed into the moon, right? And every time that happens, those geologic devices get readings, and they always say that the moon is hollow by like 80%. There's only 20% is the shell around the whole volume of the moon, or even less, right? Because the surface is, it's this dust that you can't believe. And that dust is really the meteors hitting it and getting smashed and, smashed and smashed. And after, 3 million years of that, it's pretty much dust, right? And so, but when they bought a digger, right? One of those guys, Apollo programs brought a drill to go deep, right, to get core samples. And it went down 20, 30, 40, 50 feet and hit something, and the drill just got chewed up, meaning it hit something stronger than a carbide diamond laser bit. So that's why I like Dark Journalist. He is let's see. Need Better Wings, yes. So I'm glad you guys read this because I can barely read it. And I just go on, I'm your griot. I just keep going on with the story, and you guys talk amongst yourselves and make comments about me, but I really can't see it. Even when you put it in sanity, what? Uh, and I still don't even know how to go backwards here. Here we go. Covered experience reality. Simulation. And simulators. So I had a girlfriend. The that little lamp in the movies, Pixar movies, right? Their little logo. I had a girlfriend who wrote that algorithms, and she is the mama of all computer graphics. And that's why Pixar has that lamp as their logo. Because before she wrote this algorithm, they had computer graphics, but they just made prints, right? And so they had to do, they had to like computer generate a print and then use it as a frame and then a frame and a frame and a frame. And it was like even worse than guys drawing it, right? Because they had to make an algorithm for each one. She wrote an algorithm that enabled you to make, a computer graphic moving picture, right? 3 dimensions, right, on a 2-dimensional plane, right? And that's why that lamp turns around and it extends its neck, and because and so she got her PhD. They didn't give her a nickel because she was at Stanford and Stanford owned it, right? And then she went to this project and did that, and so she's the first woman to be on the IEEE board, and she started SIGGRAPH, Special Interest Computer Graphics Group, right? And she started NYIT, New York Institute of Technology. So this girl was, and so at NYIT, she was working on, computer simulators for, jet fighters and stuff like that, because it's too expensive just guy who's never flown an airplane to get in there and fly it around, right? So, and helicopters and all of that kind of stuff. So, and she was an amazing human being, right? And she was like a racehorse. And so most men were jealous of her because, most humans were. No one was as smart as this girl, right? And she was really a sweetheart, and everyone treated her crappy. And so we met at a party, and I had met her before. So I had worked for Xerox, so I kind of stumbled onto her then. But that was years then, and it was just and then when I saw her, and it's like 10 years later, and she'd gone through a lot of iterations, and she wasn't that girl with the pigtails and just off the farm. She had a really nice suit. She was really right. She looked like Lauren Bacall, and she's like leaning against the wall. And all these people were like Elon Musk, trying to impress each other, right? There's a Guy Nuriev or whatever, and his brother is an actor who was in the TV show about the naval investigation guys and the girl from Mossad, and her father was head of Mossad. That was Guy's brother. So I knew those guys well, right? And because I was a dude, and everyone wanted to go to disco, you could just walk in with me. But Christine, no, she just what she did, what she loved was her work, right? And so I understood enough of what she was doing, right? I actually understood it more. I couldn't. In 1963, when the Catholic Church had me learning computer programming, and we had to program on a fucking Kraken keyboard, and it would punch holes in the hanging chads in cards, and the program would be like 1,000 of these cards, and then we had to transpose them onto paper tape, which then put it into onto magnetic tape. And it was like going to the dentist all the time, one little stroke wrong. And it's like, and to compile all that stuff, it was like, oh. So the teacher, like I said, this guy was a monk and truly amazing guy. And he, was Turing's sweetie best friend from about 1909 until he killed himself, right? And so when they were at Oxford, they were the dudes, right? And no one thought they were, gay. Just a little strange because they were so brilliant, and everyone cut them a lot of slice. And then when World War II came around, and they needed a Bletchley Park to break the Enigma machine. So anyway, so this guy, so it was like the guys at Apple, right? There was Jobs and then Wozniak. This guy was Wozniak. My teacher was Wozniak, right, from the 1920s and 30s. Anyway, so bottom line, I took this course. I was made to take these courses, and so I knew how to do trigonometry already, right? And I could do it in my head to the third point. And in reality, you don't need to go any further. You don't need to go to 16 points after the decimal. No. So I could do that, and I had a few other, and I could visualize things, problems, and then I could see them and realize what direction you should try to mathematically define, right? And to take it any further from that, but I was great to work with people who could do, or who knew how to do the slide rule thing really well. So our teacher, at a certain point, I remember one day I just wanted to throw the freaking machine, but I was a little guy. I was trying to pick the thing up and throw it across the room. And I was not the Hulk. And he was just giggling. He said, Al, let's take a walk. And so we walk. And he goes, listen, all those morons, they're monkeys. They're like the guys who wrote the Bible. You're a whole different kettle of fish, right? So, I know your whole thing is electricity. I know. So I'm working on all these little projects. I need a guy who's good with a, soldering iron. who can read resistors without having to look at a chart, who knows how, which end of a capacitor to use, So you're going to do that. That's great. And so what's great? Because I could go off to his lab and do whatever the frack I wanted and just stay there. I didn't have to deal with the rest of that stupid school. Because every time I did, I couldn't keep my mouth closed. I just kept speaking truth to power. And in the Catholic Church, that doesn't go over well, right? I mean, they in our school, they had slaves. They had indentured servants. They couldn't get out of work. They didn't pay them. They just fed them and gave them an apartment, right? So, so I organized people in that group because I would do something bad. They made me work in the kitchen. They made me work as a waiter. They made me work in the farm, milking the cows and the goats. That's when I became farm boy, Let's check. Thanks, man. Talk soon, okay? Well, I love that you guys have your own little relationships. So Lana, get a hold of Lana. She used to be able to WhatsApp me, but somebody bought WhatsApp and now my WhatsApp doesn't work anymore. And I had this other thing we use and that doesn't work anymore. And unless she calls, she seems to be able to call me. I can't seem to call her. So Uh, Saturday, what? Let's see. Love the jazz. Yep, so do I. I'm a jazz boy. I used to play the clarinet and the saxophone. I just couldn't take the reed. There's something chemically just I couldn't do it. But I had all these friends. I lived in Harlem, so by the time I got to be 18 to 25, these guys were really you know amazing jazz musicians and musicians period. And I worked in rock and roll, and I worked building recording studios, so I see these guys a lot. And I built a number of what I used to call zombie clubs, clubs in places that only groups would go. So there was this one club up near Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard, kind of where Malcolm X had his temple. And it was down, it had been I don't even know what the building had been, but it had caught fire and fell down. But the basement was humongous, and it had a structure to itself. So when the building fell down, it didn't even scratch the basement. It didn't really affect the basement. And Eddie Green, the Green family, ran the black mob up there in Harlem. And Mrs. Green loved me. And they had a really nice house up in the South Bronx, really like castle. And anyway, so he said, "Oh yeah, I need some help." He brought me up there and said, well, "Let's do some of it." So I was Mr. Theater Lighting and Mr. Master Electrician. So yeah, I did that, and it was great. It was great, great, great. So that was anytime I really wanted to impress a young lady, I would just. So we're gonna go hear some music. Are we going to go to the Village? Oh no, we're gonna go up to South Bronx. South Bronx. So yeah, no big deal. And Eddie had, what are those a car service? I mean, Eddie had everything. And so, I had already made a little, I had already got a car, and I would pick her, whoever I was, trying to take out or impress. I would, I have a car waiting for us down, and we'd go right there. And it was straight it was just like the scene out of Goodfellas, where the guy goes to that place and Tony Bennett is singing, but it looks like it's a warehouse or something, but with a nice kitchen. That was his place. And so they had the table waiting for me, and so that was always fun. And that's what being the dude was, those knowing people. And so last week, I went to Ash Pit, and it was so nice. I hadn't been to Ash Pit since I left in '99, right? And I would zip through when I would be heading from Virginia down to Florida, and I would stay with some friends on their couch for an evening, and we wouldn't go out, we wouldn't really see people, we wouldn't do anything. We just, we would talk, and and I would leave in the morning. But I stayed at a friend of mine's house for a week, he and his lovely wife, and they are truly amazing artists. I mean, I showed you their art, my buddy's art show at school. He was the head of the art department and ran the photography department, and really affect a lot of people's lives. And his wife is a great artist too. And so they have, they've been, we both showed up in Asheville in '91, but they stayed there, right? So '91 to 2001, 2011, 21. So that's at least 30 years, if not longer. And so it was really nice because lots of other people I knew came over and had dinner, and they are both amazing chefs. And so it was truly a nice week, right? And I did about, I don't know, 5-6 shows from. He's got, his house it's got 3 basements, and because Asheville's like San Francisco, it's on a hill, so all of those basements have gigantic windows. So it's fun to be in a basement that has amazing sunlight in the morning. It just would come in. So I had a really beautiful week. And I saw tons of folks I hadn't seen before, and we told stories, and I had pictures of everything, and people loved that, and so it was loads of fun, and we knew each other really really well, and so no one was trying to and all these people are like way impressed. They are famous. They are pretty amazing. And yet I've known them for 40 years, and so they've known me when I was, pretty much still doing this, and doing all kinds of other stuff. And when they were coming up, I was doing all kinds of stuff, and so it was really fun because these people, these are all like famous people, in there, and really if you want to be famous, this is how you do it. You find something that you really, 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 really love doing, and plays to being famous, like being an artist of any type, music, film, literature, whatever, um, or a scientist, again, in any discipline. But you have to stick at that one thing and do nothing else with the rest of your life. And now, if you're, really good at one, you can travel because once you get really good and published and all that, people will want you to come to wherever and speak for them, there, here, and everywhere, right? And so that's, how you do it. Me, I basically, so electricity, physics, math, theater, in all its presence, music, dance, you know, costume, sets, lights, acting, directing, literature. Um, I did all of those at a point where, you know, it was being produced. And then, psychology, sociology, anthropology, the ologies. I was Mr. Ology, shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, cultural, anthropologic alchemist. I mean, that's on my business card. And I didn't think that up. One of my bosses said, I just made you a business card, and this fits everything we do. So when I send you someplace, you'll be able to hand it to them. And I go, okay. And that's my whole life has been that. Meaning, I've always had someone way above me. Just, like my dad, with the lead blanket over me and, welding glasses and holding firmly onto my shoulders. I've always had someone watching out for me. And right now, God is watching out for me because really I'm at a place where, it's really, I'm dead and done it all. And I'm here telling you stories. That's why I'm a griot right now. This is my gig. Now a lot of people, you talk so much, but that's what a griot does. We tell a story in such a way that it suspends your disbelief, right? It's not I'm not a TikTok kind of guy. Now, I have loads of people who do that. I have all these people. That's why I stopped trying to do stuff I don't want to do because I have a number of adepts and folks who are part of my cadre who take care of that for me. And I'm in my 70s, and 2 weeks ago I could have been dead. But I had knowledge of my body and medicine more than the guys who wanted to freaking do an open heart surgery on me. I said, no, 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 you can't just do no, but you could die any second. I said, I could die any second, anytime. From the time I was born, I could die any second. No, 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 no. First you need to sonogram we don't call it sonograms anymore. Well, whatever. Bounce sound waves off my carotid arteries and off my major vein that goes from my pubic symphysis to my heart. And then I need this kind of blood test, and then I need a CAT scan. You do all of that, and you show me this, this, then this. Okay, maybe I'll let you crack my tent. But even then, I don't feel any pain. I can run up a hill. They put me in a stress test as well. You seem. I said, okay. And that was the first thing to go to the other thing. But what it was I went off my little procedure to stay in homeostasis. Thanksgiving, I went to John's family's, and his mother is unbelievable Italian cook, and man, I ate everything. And she made every kind of cookie and cake and pie and you name it, and I ate it. Right. And so that's kind of what threw me off. So, but much, 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 much uh, head out. Much love, everyone. Got to head out. Okay, Dr. Esoteric, I love you. I am so happy you're back in the fold of the cadre. And be safe. Yep. So let's see, how many people are watching? 2. Only been on 1 hour and 16 minutes. How much juice do I have left? Oh, about 20 minutes. What time is it now? No, not even 7. Is it? Not quite 7 yet. 6:41. I might stick this back on the charger and come back later. And so who's left? There's 2 of you there. 2 thumbs up. So Jamie, I love it for all your comments. Jamie's one of the few who comment on the comment zone. I'd love more comments. And let's see. Come on. What? See, I can't. I gotta get rid of these guys here so I can read the comments. Indentured servitude. Yeah, new generation. That's where they're going. But see, the real deal about any of that, New World Order, 1984, whatever dystopian world you want to look at, all we have to do is say, no, we're not doing that. Not going to happen. Sorry, And that's what this war in Ukraine is all about. I mean, Vlad, all my scholars, guys who, I've been studying, global politics for the last 40, I know what's going on. I said, well, this is soap opera. It's the war of the 2 Vlads. The Ukrainian stand-up comedian, he's reading a script, and Vlad, the bag man, he's reading a script. And he's been reading a script for the last 40 years, since the fall of the Soviet Union, That's why they picked him. After, the Soviet fell and being a colonel in the intelligence is like, being, a mail boy. So he very expendable. And so he went back to Leningrad and drove a cab. And then he became a fixer for the mayor. And that's how he got his job in Moscow, right? Working for... and a guy who destroyed the Soviet Union was Yeltsin because he hated Mikhail Gorbachev. And he couldn't win, within the construct. He couldn't become the boss within the construct of the Soviet Union. So he destroyed the Soviet Union, and his power base was Russia. So this is Al, Bob, John, and the cadre. Yep, that's us. John is upstairs. I hope he's resting. So I'm here to help John, right? This is one of my last-ditch efforts. If you've been watching him, I want to get back with my wife and kids, right? That's one thing. I want to go to California, become a movie, right? Okay. I want to sell this plate, right? Okay. I'm going to help with all of that, right? If he lets me, because as my mother would say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? So I've made it here 2 days, no, 1 day. I got here yesterday in the afternoon. And, I brought real food and made him 3 really good meals, right? with vegetables and real stuff, and because he has a refrigerator full of these. Processed food, right? Sweet Earth, compound chicken, organic, vegan, anything in a box. I mean, it's probably better than McDonald's, but who knows? But so I made real stuff, right? And he did I was cooking video of me, right? So Don is his essence is sweet and kind and just a really innocent, good person. And he's smart, and he's got more degrees than a thermometer. I mean, he really does. Me, not so much. I mean, the degrees I have were like given to me just so I could do a job. You're gonna have to go to this conference, and I'm gonna want to know. So here's a degree, and that's the best way to get a degree. You don't have to pay for it. And of course, I moved around so much that I lost every piece of documentation, whatever. And if you go to those colleges, he wasn't here. Just like a guy who worked at what was that guy's with the glasses? He worked at Area 51, and he did because he described it, talked about it, and I was there. So yeah, that guy was. I mean, I didn't know him. I met him a number of years later, but back when I was in the conferencing. But that was so. I mean, all of those guys are okay, but again, they are so because the guys who are real, they've already been wired. Like Preston Nichols is an example. He's been all over, on other planets, other solar systems, you name it. But there's that TV show where they go to work, they don't remember who they are at home, and when they're at home, they can't remember work. That's when I say wired. That's what they do to you. And I had many. Boy, we want you part of the team. I said, that's good. I'm not. Unless I can do this without having to turn into Preston. We need no. You'll have to sign this. I don't think so. Make me draw blood. No, I don't think so. I would work up to a certain point, and that was more than I needed to know what was going on with that. So why did I need to go any further? I didn't. I didn't need to get on a spaceship. Where I live in a deep green, they come and visit me all the time. Here they visit me all the time. The other night, in Asheville, in my friend's basement, they came and visited me. In Dreamtime. I mean, in Dreamtime, I can go anywhere, anytime, any place. I don't need to be transhumanized, right? And so I taught a lot of people. I mean, all you have to do. Okay, here we go. I'm going to show you how to do it right here, right now. So everyone get comfy. Either lie down or sit in a chair. Don't cross anything. Don't cross your legs. Don't cross your arms. Don't cross your hands, your fingers, your eyes. And then take a breath in. More. And say, conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am. Om. And what that do will get you breathing in that state. It'll put you in state. Conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am. Om. And the conscious intent you are is that you want to go into state and you want to do X, Y, and Z. I want to see aliens. I want to go on another planet. I want to drive my own spaceship. That's conscious intent, right? You put yourself in state. Bingo, there you go, right? I want to go to my Akashic record. Bingo. I want to see my imaginary mirror, which is right behind your eyelids. That's where you have REM sleep. Let's see. Be safe. Let's see. Tell Bob, okay, blah. The script is about keeping power, right? Pretty much, and keeping the general sheeple asleep, right? Addicted to their convenience, right? Oh, how am I going to pay my bills? Well, just don't spend money you don't have, right? That's what I do. If I don't have the money, I don't buy it. I don't spend it. Don't do it. You know. And I'm, out in the deep green now. I've had that place for 20 years, and 18 years have been like being in heaven in a nature preserve. It's really sad since Colonel Sanders and the Floridian and the Californian and the New Jerseyan have showed up. All the animals left. All my friends left, and because I live in the Cherokee National Forest, there's a lot of places I can go. I have friends who live down, like Fish. She lives down near Nashville, or I always forget, was it Nashville or the other one? But anyway, she lives down there in Flatland, Tennessee. And she lives right in the middle of the big city, but her little thing is like not a separate county, but a thing that it's like being in the country, meaning it had been the country up till about 5 years ago now, between the different highways they put in and all that. And she's got, pretty big backyard, an acre or two, with a fence around it for her dogs. And very often she will wake up in the morning, look out her window, and there'll be 30 deer in her backyard because they got no place to go. And that fence is like a safety net around them. And then that's her, and she says it's a pretty high, it's 6 foot fence, and they jump over it like they're stepping over it. Anyway, it's here, that's not that case. So this was a nature preserve. This was a defunct gated community, so they liked it. There was loads of stuff for them to eat. They had me as to have company with, and to appreciate them, and energetically, they loved just hanging out with me. I remember, so I have this big deck, right, and there's a black panther that's up in that thing, and we also have cougars and all kinds of stuff. And I'll be on my little deck, like tapping away, and I'll just kind of look over there, and there's the panther, or I look over there, and there's 3 or 4 cougars, right? Or, Benny the bear is like rummaging through my compost pile. But, I haven't figured out whether Benny was a guy or a girl, really. I had a sense that it was a girl because very often there were little cubbies with them. Anyway, they'd roll around in my compost and chew on this, chew on that. It was great because I didn't need one of those things to roll my compost around. Those bears would do it. So, and I had a big families of not just one type of owl. I had 4 different types of owls. Big, the big white ones that are like almost 6 foot tall. They got like a wingspan of 12 feet, and they just step. They would be way on top of these way tall poplars. And I just watch them step off. That's what got rid of all the crazy teenage raccoons. Is that they would just be up there. This raccoon would be going, dragging, my lunch away from me, and then those guys would just step off and ding, pick them up, and they got the nasty of talons, and they just stick it right in the back of his neck and hit the main jugglers going to the brain, and the guy would drop my lunch, and they'd be flying just away. So that was great for 18 years, and I have a lake that's just down, if I want to go swimming, it was just a mile walk down the hill, and just half a mile down the Death Road, it was a holler mom and daddy, grandpas, mama and papa, that, they had a farm, but their biz, they used to sell all their beans to Birdseye, and then Maymead and Bayer and Monsanto came in and turned the Garden of Eden into a monoculture of you know, cow feed, tobacco, and Christmas trees. So they kept a chunk of their what they would grow, and they grew lots of different vegetables, and they ran what I used to call a holler store out of their garage. So that tons of vegetables, and they'd have honey, and they had chickens, so they had eggs, and they had chickens that they would, um, you know, pluck and sell, for dinner, and they had pigs, so they had, pork, and Papo just kind of got into the internet, and he would go and buy lots of things that were ridiculously cheap. So they had you know, whatever you kind of would have to go to Walmart's to get, like ketchup and mustard and this and that, toilet paper, whatever. You would buy, at Job Lots, things going out of business. So you could get all of that stuff, underpants, socks, you name it. This guy, hardware, they had everything. And a lot of it was like outdated, but so the mustard needed to be sold by 2 years ago. I found a packet of Swiss cheese I bought there in 2004 last summer in a box, and it said, eat by 2004, and it was, 2021, and it was, I hadn't opened it up, so it was still in its plastic, sealed thing. Nothing was green or fuzzy. I opened it up, put it on some pretty good bread, and made grilled cheeses out of it. Still alive, and it was awful tasty. So anyway, up until 2020, that's when COVID hit, and all of the um, you know the sorry folk, the folk who blame everyone else. Oh, when I was in California, it was terrible. All those homeless people, man. Homeless people are everywhere. First of all, I mean, this Christmas, Colonel Sanders brought two of his tweakers as slaves. I mean, he treated them. He didn't pay them. He let them live in a pop-up on his, not even his property, somebody else's property. So, and he and his family went back to Florida to not be here for the cold Christmas. And he didn't let those people stay in his house or even in their pop-up. He said, just, sleep in a forest. And that's when I said, oh man. So they were lucky. I had my gypsy wagon that had a wood stove in it, and Colonel Sanders had cut up a ton of wood and had a big wagon. So anyway, so I grabbed them and said, "Man, it's going to be really cold tonight. You need to go get some wood. Well, you got to go to Lowe's and buy it for." I said, "No, no, no, no. You guys just cut up a bunch of Colonel Sanders. Go just take his wagon and drag it up. Well, can you hook it up to your car? No, fill it up. It's got nice wheels. It'll roll right to the gypsy wagon, and it's only a tenth of a mile. I think you can. It's two of you. One pulls, the other pushes. Right? They did that, and they didn't die. And they had no food, so I fed them. And I have very limited food, and it's wintertime, right? Luckily, this church guy comes and drops stuff off, but he gives me half the stuff he gives me I can't eat. He gives me cereal, like Frosted Flakes and Fruit Loops and stuff like that, and Entenmann's cookies and cakes. I can't eat that shit. I die. These guys love that stuff, right? And then I would cook, and how I cook is just like I cook here. I made something yesterday, and then we didn't eat it all, and then I took what that was and added new vegetables and new this and new that, and did some rice and that. And then anyway, that's how I cook. And so basically, I would make something, and half of it would be what I would eat the next day. Well, these guys, I only ate a quarter of what I had made and gave them the three-quarters of what was left. Because they just never said thank you. And every time they ate, oh, this is great. I said, well, I'm a pretty good cook. This is great. Never a thank you, though. Right? And there were a number of things I needed help. I'm an old guy. My body is not the best, and I don't have four arms like John. He needed the vacuum cleaner to work, and he said, "Oh, how do the hose?" He had stuck it, and the hose got really cold and cracked. So how do I fix this? And I just found a roll of duct tape. Right? I said, "Well, here, you just. Well, how do we put the?" I said, just hold them together. And I put the duct tape, and I started putting. Well, let me do it. And I said, it takes four hands to do this. And so I could do it. I said, okay, go ahead, do it. And he started to tape his hand to the. I said, see, four hands, two to hold, two to wrap. So we did. I said, it's teamwork. See, that's what this is. It's teamwork. You. Well, I worked so hard. I did everything here. Teamwork. And then he gets frustrated and then gets really upset and jumps up and down and screams. And says, you don't need to do that. First of all, you don't need to do it. I'm here. You're getting people to do this. You don't have to stand over them like, Whitley snide lap. No, I'll just, I'll keep an eye on it. I got your back. Don't worry about it. My father, I said, your father's not here. You don't have to worry about it. Anyway, so that's why I'm here, to help him. This is it for me, because I know something's coming where I will be doing something way different than this. And, I may be dead, and I'll be in another plane of existence doing something way different than this. And, when you slide into that land, and you kind of get yourself out, and the same thing with being sick, when you get the flu or cold or whatever. The good thing about being sick, it makes you appreciate being well, right? So, yeah. Right now, I have to get up and move. Otherwise, I will be rusting here. How much juice do we have left? Ooh, about 20 minutes. We'll do. So I hope you guys are still breathing conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am, Om, right? Because if you are up there already. So, before I go, I'm going to do a little movement. And that is a process of moving chi and prana in the universe. And I do that before I do the show, because when I start the show, this is a shamanic, energetic ceremony. So, I'm going to sign off here, because it's always good to sign off before I run out of juice. And it is, what time is it? It is 7:04. So I'll come back, let's say around 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Let's say 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. How about that? An hour and a half. That's it. take about 40 minutes for this thing to juice all the way back. Okay. Okay. I love you guys. Remember, dudawake42@gmail if you want to get a hold of me. If you got Gmail, I'll send you one of my novels. If you want to send me a photograph of your palm, both sides, and like this much, right? And light it up better than that. And it's about keeping power. Yeah. I love you guys. Okay, so I'll see you in about an hour and a half, give or take. Okay.